Some care arrives after you're asleep. I wasn't ignored, just left behind. There was a time when I could tell a story badly and still have someone stay. I'd start from the middle, forget important details, jump to another topic, circle back 20 minutes later, and somehow they would still be there. Sometimes I would look at the clock and realize it was almost 2 a.m., then feel guilty for keeping them awake. Go sleep. And they would say, finish first. Back then, I thought the conversations were what mattered. Now I think it was the staying. The willingness to remain on the other side of the screen while nothing important was happening. The patience to listen to stories that led nowhere. The small pauses. The random voice notes. The sound of someone fighting sleep but refusing to leave yet. You never notice how much space a person occupies until they stop filling it. These days, nothing is wrong between us. At least nothing obvious. The messages still come. The concern is still there. Sometimes when I get home late, I unlock my phone and see it waiting. Home yet? Just those 2 words. No follow-up. No long conversation waiting behind them. Know what happened today? No tell me everything. Just a quiet check-in sent before they fell asleep. And somehow that feels heavier than being ignored. Because it isn't the absence of care. It's the change in its shape. I used to think distance arrived dramatically. Arguments. Goodbyes. Doors closing. But most of the time it arrives like this. One person slowly learning how to sleep without hearing the rest of your story. One person no longer staying awake for details they used to collect like treasures. One person caring enough to ask if you got home safely, but no longer needing to know what happened on the way. The strangest part is that I still catch myself preparing stories. Something funny happens during the day. A customer says something weird. I see a dog sitting inside a convenience store like it owns the place. I save the thought automatically. I'll tell them later. Then later comes. And I stare at the chat box longer than necessary. Type. Delete. Type again. Because suddenly the story feels too small. Not because it is. Because there's no longer a place waiting for it. I think that's what people rarely talk about. Missing someone isn't always missing their presence. Sometimes it's missing your own version of yourself around them. The version that talked too much. The version that didn't edit every sentence before sending it. The version that believed every tiny thing was worth sharing. Now I find myself opening the chat, reading old messages, then locking my phone without sending anything. Not out of anger. Not even sadness. Just uncertainty. Like standing in front of a house you used to enter without knocking. One night I came home tired. The kind of tired that makes you sit on the edge of the bed without turning on the light. My shoes stayed on longer than they should have. My bag was still hanging from one shoulder. I opened my phone. There it was. Home yet? Sent an hour earlier. Under it, nothing. No second message. No question mark repeated. No guess you're asleep. No waiting. I looked at the typing box for a long time. Then I replied. Just got home. A few minutes later, I remembered they were already asleep. And for some reason, that hurt more than if they had never texted at all. Because once upon a time, they would have been awake. Not because they had to. Because they wanted to be. That's the difference nobody prepares you for. Care doesn't always disappear. Sometimes it simply becomes quieter than your loneliness. Sometimes people still think about you. Still worry. Still hope you're okay. But not in the way they used to. And that realization arrives in ordinary moments. While charging your phone before bed. While reheating cold food at midnight. While seeing a message notification and already knowing the conversation ends there. No fight. No explanation. Just a small question floating in the dark. Home yet? And an answer that arrives after the person who asked has already gone to sleep. Maybe that's why it feels so heavy. Because there is kindness inside it. And distance too. Because some people don't leave your life all at once. They simply stop waiting at the end of your stories. And one day you realize you've been speaking softer ever since.